This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio. 2 days later, and we still don't know the final results in Iowa. But with 71% of precincts now reporting, Pete Buttigieg is in first place, followed very closely by Bernie Sanders, with Elizabeth Warren in third and Joe Biden in fourth place. But final results are no. It is now time for those candidates to move on to campaigning in New Hampshire for next week's first in the nation primary. Welcome now from Washington, Genevieve Wood. She is senior advisor at the Heritage Foundation. And here in New York, we have Christina Greer. She is an associate professor of political science at Fordham right here. So, first of all, let's go to you, Genevieve, and talk about what's happened in Iowa. We heard the president's campaign manager immediately come out and say, boy, they can't even run a caucus. How can they run health care for the country? Does this hurt the Democratic Party from your point of view?
Well, I think it hurts any party when you have a lot of hype going around something and then it doesn't turn out to be what you thought and the whole nation is actually looking at it. I mean, look, this happened to Mitt Romney if we go back to, I think, 2012 with the app that his campaign had. And Republicans have missed it in Iowa before, too. 1 year predicting, I think, again, might have been 2008. They predicted one winner and it turned out it was actually somebody else. But this is a big I mean, look, everybody, the Democrats have been running for 3 years against President Trump. Iowa was the first chance to see how the candidates that they have all had on the stage do. And unfortunately for them, it was not a good night in terms of looking like they could get it done, that they had their act together. And that's bad for the candidates themselves, I think, especially those who were, they're questioning in some cases how clear the results are. And I think it's demotivating to many voters.
So, Christina, it doesn't appear to have been a good night for Joe Biden, the former vice president. And the Biden camp says you shouldn't have been surprised when there's a long haul. Why is it such a long haul for Joe Biden? He's the former president, vice president of the United States, distinguished career in the Senate. If you were just looking at the resumes of the candidates and it was a job interview, it wouldn't be close.
Right, but the Biden campaign has been very clear to have deflated expectations in Iowa and New Hampshire. Because keep in mind, this is Joe Biden's third time at the rodeo running for the president of the United States.
The first two didn't go so well.
They did not go so well. And we know that Barack Obama chose him as the vice president. He was not nominated by a political party. And so in this instance, in Iowa, he knew that this isn't necessarily his base. And he knows that New Hampshire, keep in mind, you have Elizabeth Warren, you've got Bernie Sanders, and don't forget about Deval Patrick. All three of them are native New Englanders, politically at least speaking. And so Joe Biden is essentially putting many of his eggs in the South Carolina basket so that if he does not come in first place, or maybe even actually it's first place or nothing for Joe Biden in South Carolina, just to keep him viable, because as the moderate Democrats are emerging, you have a Biden, you have a Buttigieg, you have a Klobuchar who's still hanging in there, and now you have Mayor Bloomberg who's doing very well in the national polls, and he's slowly but surely chipping away at these latter states that Joe Biden was hoping to really just capitalize on.
Christina, we've spent a lot of time talking about what the possible Democratic strategy would be, whoever the candidate is come November, what issues would really appeal to the voters. Did we get a really close look at President Trump's strategy come November? Because it certainly looked like he was appealing to his base. He was not reaching across that aisle. There were no olive branches that I detected.
Genevieve?
I'm sorry, is that David?
Yeah,
Okay,
you,
sorry, yeah. No. Well, look, I mean, the president gave, I think, last night what many have always said that they wanted to see somebody give, or him give, which is a very presidential performance. He did not make any knocks at the other side. He didn't bring up Iowa the night before. I kept thinking somehow he's going to work that in. He did not mention impeachment. And when it came to things like criminal justice reform, he actually said, and you in this room deserve credit for, in addition to himself, for making that happen. So, yes, of course, I mean, like every president, they give a laundry list of their achievements and accomplishments. They talk about where they have been successful. Yes, he did all of that, but he also did a lot of reaching out, maybe not just to people in that room, but I think by the people that he highlighted, many of the issues that he talked about. He made it clear that he was reaching beyond the base. I think he was reaching out directly, frankly, to African Americans, wanting them to come on board with his campaign. So I think he was reaching out beyond his base.
Christina, to that point, there was a lot of mention of prominent African Americans and talking about African American income and things like that. At the same time, the thing I did not hear were a lot of big programs going forward. There's a lot of, this is what we've done. I didn't hear as much about what are we going to do.
What's the future vision? And keep in mind, a lot of the African Americans that he highlighted, it's not actually to get African American votes necessarily. He knows that he'll get a very small percentage. It's actually to help white Americans justify their vote for someone who has, accusations of what he's doing with ICE at the border, how he's been separating families. When he says we've lifted people off of welfare, that means he's cut people off of the scrolls. There's 700,000 American families that are actually without some sort of government assistance. So the devil is in the details in the speech. But I don't necessarily think that all of his highlighting of the African-American individuals and this unemployment, when you look at the numbers, he inherited quite a bit of that from Barack Obama. So what does he want to do moving forward? He didn't really lay that out.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, many thanks now to Christina Greer here in New York with me and Genevieve Wood down in Washington. And tune in.